In this episode, I take a look at this Angem Regula 25 Cuckoo clock made in the Black Forest in 1972. I remove the bellows and pipes, then take the movement out of the case. The bellows and the pipe are prepared so I can add the new Tyvek paper to them. Today's clock is a Angem Cuckoo clock made in the Black Forest. It's got a Regula 25 movement in it, and it was made in 1972. We'll have a look at the clock in a moment. This is a topper. It's got a crack in there. It's been rather roughly fixed. It's still a little bit flexible, so I'll have a look and see what I can do with that. I might be able to fill it up with some glue and some sawdust. I'll be able to... It's broken there too. That's serious break. I would say the clock most likely was pulled off the wall when someone was trying to lift the weights. That's what I would think, to have that amount of damage. Snapped there and snapped there. So it'll be interesting to see what condition the movement's in once we get into that part of the clock. Right, it's a 7-leaf 3-bird clock. You can see that by the carving. 5-leaf and 2-bird there. And there's the other 2 and the 1. It's in pretty good condition actually for a clock that was made in 1972. It's obviously been well looked after until it smashed on the floor. I assume it smashed on the floor to do that amount of damage. But there doesn't seem to be any breaks or chips in any of the other carving, which is interesting. It's a little bit loose, but that's easily fixed. There's a pendulum, original, little bit loose. We'll tighten those couple of edges down later on, and that'll tighten it a bit. And it also could do with a light hammering on those pins there actually. That's where it's loose. One of the bellows tops has come loose. That's the wire that raises the cuckoo bird's tail, so it bobs up and down when it's cuckooing. Alright, we'll turn the hands are alright, they're inside there. We'll turn the movement over. That's the chain, pretty rusty. We'll clean that up. You can see it's a 1-day chain, 61 links per linear foot. I'll take the back off and we'll see what we've got. The coil gong that the hammer strikes on the back door. Right, we'll have a look and see what we've got in here now. There's the movement. GM there for Angem. There's a little cuckoo bird up there. Still attached to the door. You can see there's a fair bit of dirt on there, dust. The high note works alright. The low note has lost its top. We'll put that on. We'll remove the pipes and we'll put that on. We'll take the movement out, take it to pieces, check it all thoroughly, clean it, put it through the ultrasonic cleaner, get that sorted. We'll check the bellows. I'll reattach the bellows on the top here. And I'll have to put some new Tyvek paper on it because there's none there. Alright, so that's our current project. So the first thing we'll have to do, as always, is remove the hands before we can do any work on the movement. So I'll undo this knurl nut here that's relatively tight. Very tight on those plastic hands, that's got it. Take the hand off. I don't think there's a washer on there. No. That's the square piece. That's a square piece that sits on the minute hand. And the hour hand is a friction fit. And we'll very carefully lift it up. And there it is. Plastic hands. I'll make sure that the lock is on the door so it doesn't swing over. Turn the movement over. Could do with a good general clean, that's for sure. We'll now start to remove the pipe, get them out of the case first, and then we'll be able to take the movement out. Right, we'll take the first bellows out, the low note, there's a screw, we'll unscrew that, comes out rather easily. I'll remove the rest of that by hand, put it aside, and the pipe now just wiggles off the brad that holds it in, that piece there. Right, we'll check and see whether the pipe works or not. That was blowing down the pipe. Obviously works alright. We'll have to reattach the top of the bellows, which goes there. We'll clean that mess up. It's the last lot of glue that's still on it, and then we'll put some Tyvek paper on it and get that sorted out. But at the moment it's in two pieces. Put them aside. Now I can't see a lift lever for that set of bellows, but I have got some extra ones in stock, so that's not a problem. We'll be able to have a look and see what we can find. Right, now we'll have to undo the lift lever for the high note, which is this one down here. I'll get some pliers on the bottom of that, bend it up carefully, and then slip the lift lever up, and the lift wire comes out, and there it is. Right, now we can take the pipe out. There's a screw, blade screwdriver, small one's all we need, very small screws. Unwind them, and then carefully jiggle a little bit more. I'll use a screwdriver to lift it a tiny bit, and it very easily comes off the brad. There's the brad there. I know it's working alright. There's a tiny little hole just there. I wonder. Yep, there's a little bit of air escaping from that, but not very much. I think what I'll do is I'll probably put a small drop of CA glue on that to seal that, because that bellows material is actually leather. That would have been the original leather, hard to believe. It certainly looks like that, yes. I don't think that's been changed. I think that's the original leather that was put on there in 1972. So I'll retain that, and I'll put a tiny drop of CA glue on that, which will seal it up. There's a little bit of air coming out of there when I hold it up to my face and press the bellows top, but not very much. Alright, now we're ready to take the movement out. But naturally, before we do that, we have to remove the hooks on the chains. I'll turn that back a little bit. Take that hook off, the weight hook off. Off it comes. And then, no, I think we're going to lose one link. Alright, not a problem. We'll take the second one off, pair of pliers to hold that tightly. Then we'll open the link with another pair of pliers, and the hook comes out, and that's not in too bad a condition actually. That one will be alright. I'll wind that down just a tiny bit. Alright, that's got him, excellent. They're the hooks that hold the weight. They will come up nicely, I think, once we give them a bit of a clean. And just as a test, I'll put a little bit of steel wool on the top of them, wind around a few times, and you can see they're looking better already. That piece is nice and shiny, and down there isn't. Right, so we'll sort those out later on. Now we'll pull the chains through the movement. The first one. They'll need a bit of cleaning, they're looking pretty rusty. And the second one. Oh, it's got caught. Alright, that can stay there until we take the movement out, which we're going to do now. I'll use a long shaft screwdriver so we could, no I won't, too big. Use my little screwdriver. Undo the screws. First one, drop it into the slot once we can find it. There we go. That should almost come out. Yep, second one, up to the top. That's better, we've got a bit of light on these ones. I can actually see what I'm doing. Third one. And the last one. Alright, now we can remove the movement from the case. Being careful of the little bird so we don't catch it. It gets its tail out, that's better. Oh, wait a minute. It's still attached to its door. Of course, I forgot to take that off. Alright, we'll undo that wire. That will come off there. It should just, got to come back a little bit more, look. And that should just pull out. It's a bit, I'll move the movement up a little bit to give us a little bit more room, and there we go. Put the hook back on that to hold it. Turn the case over, and then we can take the movement out. Brake side chain is still attached. Alright, it's caught down there. I think that's an easy fix. I'll pull that out and see if we can pull it through. There we go. And now that chain can now come out of the case, which it has done. And there's our movement. Yep, scope wheel's turning. There's our little bird on the perch. I'll take him off. Whoop! Because we don't want that to happen. We don't want him to get damaged. Undo that screw. Just a little bit, and it slides right off. There's our little bird with his mouth opening and closing. Oh, that could do with a bit of a clean. In this episode, I test the bellows and pipe to make sure that they're working correctly. Then I prepare the bellows and pipe for repapering. I attach the hinge to the bellows, and then cut out the Tyvek paper for the bellows. Alright, now we'll have a quick look at the movement, see what exciting things may be in store for us later on. But in the meantime, we've got here a stamp GM for GM Angem 25, regular 25. We've got 72 written there, which is the date it was made in West Germany, and there's brand Regula down there. And look, oh, one of my favourite things, look at the oil on that. Whoa, da 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 da, look at that. I'll take a photo of that. That's so good that requires its own individual photo. Look at the oil on that. The maintenance cam was stuck to the rack stop lever with all the oil on it. Alright, I'll grab a photo of that, then I'll come back and we'll start taking the movement to pieces. Before we can recover the bellows with Tyvek paper, we need to get rid of the old glue that's on every corner there and also around the top of the bellows there. So we'll do that first. We'll scrape it down with the knife. It should come off pretty easily. It is, yes. The back there, down the side. That's pretty old glue, so it came off pretty well. Right, now the pipe, get rid of the old encrusted glue on it. Round each side and the end. Little bit of the original leather on there. Alright, that's alright. We'll check the pipe to make sure that the reed, that piece there, is in the right place by blowing on it. Yep, that sounds pretty good. Alright, now I'll get out some Tyvek paper, and first up we'll put a hinge on the back here, and then we'll put the Tyvek paper around so when the bellows opens it forces air out through the reed. Here's our Tyvek paper. Some scraps from before, we'll cut a hinge out of that later on. But before we start cutting the Tyvek paper up, we need to find out how much we're going to need. So I'll put the bellows top on top of the pipe there. We'll measure it 30 millimeters and a height of 7. So I'll drop that down. 30 by 7 millimeters, and that's a hinge. Right, now we'll see what length we're going to need for the Tyvek paper. 45, 2 of those will be 90. Plus 35, 130 mil. So length will be 130, and we'll measure the width of the bellows once they're open, allowing a little bit to stick on the top and on the bottom. So we'll go for 35 mil again, 35 millimeters. So we want 130 by 35 millimeters. And that's the sides and front. So there's our notes, we've got that sorted. Put that over there. First up, we'll mark out the hinge. We want 30 by 7. So we'll come up here. 30 mil is there, which we'll just draw a straight line up there at the moment, relatively parallel to that end there. And then we want 7 mil high. All right, 5, 6, 7 mil. 7 mil there. And 7 mil there. So we'll draw a line on that. Get those two marks aligned. Over a little bit. All right, there we go. That's our hinge. Now, a pair of scissors, sharp scissors, and we'll cut the hinge off. Actually, before we do, we'll check to make sure that our measurements are right. We'll line the bellows on top of the pipe and then put our hinge over the top. Yep, okay. That looks pretty good. I'll trim up here first. And then we'll cut across the tie vac, and that's our hinge. Now what I'll do is I'll take that little bit of the top off there because I want a little bit more timber for the glue to adhere to. That's got that. All right. Close the knife up again. So we've got that aligned. I'm going to use liquid Tarzan's grip on this. It works very well. I'll push some more up to the top. There we go. Get rid of that. And I'll put a line along the back there of the pipe and also on the bellows. Cover that across, see a little bit of a squeeze on the tube, and that should be right. Now, we don't want to join these together, so we'll take the excess off and then put them together, align them correctly, like so. We get them right. We then put the hinge on and tap it down. Oops, stuck to my finger. That is pulled off. Where's a pair of tweezers to push that down so it doesn't stick to it. All right. Make sure it's not stuck down. Nope, that's okay. All right, we'll leave that for a moment. We'll let that settle. I'll let the glue sit. And then when we come back up this side, we'll run over the end there, we'll run over the end there, and that'll hold the hinge in place, simply because it got caught on the end of my glove and moved. All right, we'll let that sit for a moment, and while that's sitting, we'll measure out the cap back on that, or it'll all go solid. We'll measure out the other piece that we need. See what we've got here in the way of, that's not going to be long enough. They'll all be used for patches and hinges at some time or other. Put that aside. Make sure we've got no glue on the area. Now we need 130 by 35. So where's our rule? $130. We'll measure that. I'll put another 5mm on that just to give us a little bit of leeway. And I'll draw a straight line there. And we want 35 up from there. 35. Down the other end. $30, $35. And then align the rule so we can see where we're going. All right, mark that. And that is what we want for the side of our bellows. So we'll cut that out. Initially I'll trim up this side here to make it a little bit more even. And then align it and come up that side. And now we cut down this edge down here along the line that we drew. Not that it's very easy because everything's moving around, but we're getting there. Down to the end. Okay. There's the rest of our bellows material. I'll put our Tyvek paper away. We don't need any more of that. And the offcuts that we'll use at some stage, no doubt. We put them all in there. Alright, we've put them away. Alright, how are we going there? That's getting better. Alright. What we've got to do now is initially find the center of our piece of Tyvek paper. That's that line there. Now we have to place that in the center going across there. So that means that we're going to glue that there. So I'll mark both sides so we know where the center is. Give that a tiny little bit more time to dry. Now we've got there and there. Where's our center mark? Yep, okay. All right, we'll let that hinge dry for another couple of minutes before we start putting the other side on. I thought I'd show you a different way of setting up the Tyvek paper this time. I normally just cut a rectangle like so and wrap it around the bellows and then trim the edges off with a sharp blade once the glue has dried. However, this time I'm going to do it differently and show you how to do that. I'll just straighten up this edge along there with a sharp blade. Recheck the height of our bellows, 35, then mark off 35 up here again, which is right there, then 35 on the other side, which is there. Now I'll straighten that side also, so that'll give us something to work with. Run down there with a sharp knife and that's done. Right, now first thing we have to do once again is find the center of our piece of Tyvek paper, which is there. And I'm going to use a fountain pen this time to do the mark out, because it doesn't bleed in through the Tyvek paper. And using a lead pencil on it, it's very hard to see. We'll smudge that a bit, but you'll see there's no mark on the other side of the ink. Right, so we now position that line in the center across there, 17.5 centimeters either side. I'll put another tiny little bit of Tyvek paper on that in a moment. It's a little bit loose. Alright, so we'll set this up and get our halfway point. Which is there. I'll mark that with my pen there and there. And then run a line across there. Still smudges, alright, well, nothing we can do about that. We need to be able to see what we're doing and have a decent line on it. Actually, I'll try my gel pen again, but it didn't work before and I don't know why I'd expect it to work now. Very, very pale, but I suppose I can do 3 or 4 strokes on it. And it won't blur as easily as the fountain pen ink does. Right, now we'll now fold our Tyvek paper in half long ways and then open it up and put our rule, get it even, right along that mark, and then we'll run over it heaps of times with a gel pen. Alright, fair enough, it takes a bit of doing. Now we're going to need another measurement, and that measurement is the distance between the bottom of the bellows and the top of the bellows. So we'll measure that, and that's 9 mils. So we'll go to the nearest, we'll call that 10 mils. So we'll mark out 5 mils either side. I'll come down a little bit closer on that. So we'll mark out 5 mils on either side there, and the same down the other end. 5 mils either way. Pick up our 5 mil line, which is there. So we've got that. And then we've got that. Alright, so the next step is coming to our 2 outside lines where the bellows is going to sit like so, and then drawing a line from that outside point down to the 5 mil mark we've just made. So I'll run across that a few times, and over on the other side the same thing. Our 5 mil mark up to the top there. This Tyvek paper doesn't like writing implements of any type. Seriously not looking any good. Right, once again we've got 4 of these to do, so that one, then the last one. Our 5 mil mark, and then up to there. Alright, so that is what our paper looks like now. So now we're going to cut that. Now we're going to shape our paper. Put our ruler along the line, first one we just drew, and cut it through with a sharp knife. Now the other end, get that aligned and cut it. Turn the Tyvek round and align the next line, cut it through, and then the last one. That'll make it a bit easier for people who don't like trimming off the loose ends once you've stuck the paper down. Alright, there's our Tyvek paper, ready to go onto the bellows. So we'll turn it over. We can see that the bellows, when opened, one jaw fits there, the other jaw fits there. That's the centre. Alright, there's our bellows that we're going to use. So actually I'll cut a little bit of that topping off there so that we've got a little bit more timber for the glue to stick to. Alright, so what we do now, open the jaws a little bit and we put a line of glue down each of these faces here on the jaws. Not putting too much because we don't want to stick the jaws together. Okay, now we align the jaws on the paper where our line is and push down on it. Lift it up and then we can see that we've got the Tyvek paper right down at the bottom there. That's sticking all right, and up at the top. Careful, this glue on my gloves is deadly stuck. Right, next step, we run some glue up along that side and that side there. And the glue's getting a little bit thick actually. And then with the bellows open, we lay the Tyvek paper down and push it into place. There'll be a tiny bit to cut off there, but not very much. Now we'll do the same on the other side, but before I do, I'll put a little nick in here so that we can fit that around. Alright, that's got it. Once again, glue on both sides, on each edge, and across there. And then Roll the Tyvek paper over. Pull it smooth. And then tap it down on both sides. Now, we want a little bit of our Tyvek paper to come across the back here, but we don't want that full piece. So I'll cut about half that out. Then on the other side, the same, cut half that out. And now we put glue on the back here. This is getting a bit thick. With the last time I used this lot, I'll have to get another tube. Then layer it down. And I'll take a tiny little cut off there before I do. Alright. And then lay that down. And that'll catch all the way around. Right, last thing we do, we've got to put a fold into the bellows so that they close properly. And I'll use a steel rule for that. I'll push both sides in, like so, and then across the front, using the round end, not the square end, because we don't want to tear anything. We'll push that in so that it folds down like that. Right, I'm going to put a rubber band over that for the moment, just to hold it tight so it gets the shape in it, only for a couple of minutes. Put it over the top of that might be the go to start. Wind it round. And there it is. Alright, we'll let that sit for a minute. The gloves are all stuck together. Well, that'll be the end of that Tarzan's grip. I'll get a new tube of that, or I'll use something or other else next time, because that's gone solid and lumpy. Alright. Well, the new Tyvek paper has finally arrived, so I'll be able to get back to this GM Angem clock now, GM Angem 25 movement, and get it completed. I was waiting for the Tyvek paper to arrive, so we'll be able to clean up this movement because it's pretty dirty. You can see all the oil and gunk and stuff on it. Alright, let's do the bellows first, then we'll take the movement apart and see what we're up against. Put the movement over there. Well, this is the bellows we're going to work on, the bellows top. Sounds a bit weak and feeble. That's because there's a great crack in it down here. So we're going to have to remove that. Oh, there's also a crack there. We're going to have to remove that bellows material and put some new Tyvek paper on it. Though first up, I'll take out this little hook here for the lift lever note. I'll take that out rather carefully, don't want to damage it. Mind you, it's hanging in there pretty well. Alright, fair enough. Put him aside there. Now, first thing we do is we've got to get rid of the old bellows material. So, I'll start off with a, there you go, that came to piece in a hurry, that was easy. I'll run round and pull off the old bit of paper on it, and then we'll start scraping to remove the glued down section. and get that cleaned up. A little bit down there, it's glued on. Cut in both ways, that'll solve the problem. Thank you, gone. Right, now across the front. And back. Down the other side. Comes off pretty easily. Little bit caught on the end down there. I'll run over that with a 600 stick in a moment and take that little rough bit off, but we'll remove the old paper from the back. First up, here we go. Now, just very quickly run over that with a 600 mesh stick and take the sharp edge off that all the way around. Alright, now that's done alright. Now we'll just check make sure the pipe's working by blowing down it. That didn't sound too bad at all. Alright, now for the top, this horrible mess. Alright, I'll run a knife cut down there so we don't lose too much of the original topping on this one, because I can't get that red anymore. Can't find that anywhere. So I'd like to retain that instead of have different coloured paper top on it. So, same thing, scrape off the old paper. We want to get as much as possible of, because we want the wood to be pretty clean so that the new glue will attach to it very easily. Actually, I'll take half of the thickness of that red cap off there, because I'm going to need some more space to put our new Tyvek paper on. There we go. Clean that, run it back, that little bit on the end. Okay. Up the side now, comes away pretty easily. We just have to make sure that the timber is pretty clean and across the front. Once again, I'll cut a third of that off, of that topping off, to give us some extra space for the Tyvek paper to stick on. Alright, that doesn't look too bad. Well, we're ready to start cutting some Tyvek paper now and then attaching it to our bellows. That seems to be pretty good nick there. Not much glue caught on there. Alright, first up we'll measure and see how much paper we need to cover the bellows. That's 45 millimeters and that is 32. So we need 45 by 2, which is 90, and 32, 122, we'll make it 125 to give us just a little bit to play with, because initially we're going to put the hinge on the back first, so we don't need to take that into account when we're doing our measurement to see how much we need round there. Alright, now I've got a bit of Tyvek paper here that we'll use for the bellows. It's just long enough, they tend to be the same size, but it's too large, we only want about half that. So I'll bend that in half be more accurate than trying to measure it. Bend it in half that way. That will then give us sufficient to go on the top of the bellows and that piece to go on there. Yep, that works out alright. So I'll cut that with a pair of scissors and save that piece, because that's for the next set of bellows I do. Alright, I'm using super glue this time. I'll get rid of that lump there, and I'll spread some of that. It's a gel, so I'll spread it in little drops along the piece of wood there, and then take up our hinge, make sure it's flat, and then push it onto the timber and hold it there. Right, that's dried for 30 seconds now. That looks alright. What I'll do now is I'll put some glue along this edge here, and then we'll attach it to the other half of the hinge there. Just slowly, meticulously working along, not in any hurry, and we don't want too much. Just enough to hold it. Take up the pipe. This is the pipe. This is the bellows up here. I'll place that on top. Align it squarely. Both sides and the front, hold it firmly, and then push the hinge down. And then I'll run over it the back of a pair of tweezers, just to make sure that it's perfectly flat, and it doesn't take very long to grip at all. Now back to our measurements. 125 millimeters. I'll take out our piece of Tyvek and grabbing our mechanical pencil, I'll cut this little flap off down here. Might make it a bit easier. All the bits and pieces just sitting over there to use for hinges. Alright, so we want 125. So it's the 150 mil rule. So 125 is that amount. And we need a square side for a start. So I'll mark that there. I don't think that is coming up very strongly. Actually, what I'll do, instead of marking it, I'll cut it now. That'll be the easiest way to do it, I think. Right, back to where we were. This time we're going to cut it first up. Alright, that's 125 mils to there. 125 mil. So we want a nice straight line down there. And I've changed the blade so it's brand new. So we should get a good clean cut, which we do. I'll take that piece off. So that is what we're looking for. That goes out. Now the next measurement we need is how wide the bellows open. So we hold the bellows open and usually about 30, but I think that paper's a little bit short, I think. Yeah, they're usually about 30 mil. So we'll measure down here 30 millimeters, and I'll make a mark on the paper. 30 mil is there, and the other one from our nice clean edge up here, 30 mil. So we'll align those two marks as closely as possible. That seems to be about it. Alright, we'll cut that piece. Nice, clean, firm cut. Done. Now we need to cut this piece up here, which is right there. Alright, line that up, and there we go. One easy cut. I'll take that little knobble off that end. And that's our piece of Tyvek paper. So that's our piece of Tyvek paper, cut to the correct size. What we're going to do now is find the center of it so that we can place the front of the bellows exactly in the middle. So first thing we'll do is we'll bend it in half like that, which will make a dent that we can put a pencil mark in. Hopefully it'll be a bit easier to see. I've used ink on Tyvek paper before. It seems to work alright and doesn't bleed too much, but a pencil's probably a better option, even though it's pretty hard to see. You can see our hinge is working well. So what we need to do now is get a position on the Tyvek paper that's equidistant between there and there, so we've got sufficient to run down both sides. So how we do that, we align the bellows over the top of that mark in the middle, like so, and then I'll make a mark along there and one along there, and I'll extend that a little bit. If we run over it half a dozen times we can see it a bit more easily, maybe a dozen. So that is where our bellows is going to go. So what we do now, we put super glue or whatever glue you're using on both faces, open the bellows up, place the back of the bellows on the edge of the Tyvek paper like that, and then holding the back, lower the front, and then roll the bellows over like that, push it down for the glue to set, and then lift it up and flatten it with your fingers. Alright, we're ready to roll. Because this super glue dries very quickly, we'll do this operation in two halves. If you're using other types of glue, you'll probably be able to do these two steps as one. But because this dries very quickly, this gel, this is the way we'll do it. Hold the top of the bellows back, align the front of your bellows to those two lines that we've drawn, and keeping the timber right to the back but on top of it, line it squarely and press down, and we'll hold that for about 30 seconds. That should be sufficient for the glue to set. And there it is. I'll just run along the front with my thumb, make sure that that's caught. Now same thing again, super glue, little dobs along the top there, bend the top down, holding the pipe in your hand, and align the top of the bellows with your paper, and then press down and hold it for about 30 seconds. Then lift up, and if you like, run over the glued surface with the back of a pair of tweezers. So that's got the front bit. Now we're going to do each side one at a time. So what we're going to have to do now, we're going to have to do both of these at the same time, because we're not going to be able to lift it up to get under it. So pull the Tyvek paper back, start off with your little dots of glue, and turn it round and run along the other side. And I'll put another one at the back of each of those because it'll look very strong. Alright, cap on the glue. Now holding the bellows open, lean over on Tyvek paper and push it down flat. Run over it with the back of a pair of tweezers, and that will make sure that it bonds. We'll trim the excess off in a moment, but we'll repeat that operation on this side first. Then on the other side, same thing. Pretty serious squeeze on this glue to get it out, but it seems to be working pretty well. Once again, fold the Tyvek paper over, tap it down all the way along, and then run over it with the back of a pair of tweezers a couple of times. And that will seat the paper very well. Now we'll cut that off in a moment, but what we've got to do first, we've got to put a dent across both sides and the front so that the bellows work correctly. Now to do that, I use a steel rule. Don't use a pointy end, use a rounded end, and just press in on the front a little bit like that, and then you can then press in down there like so, and you won't have to worry about cutting the paper you've just put on. There we go. So I'll hold that for a moment, and that's all done round there, and I'll be back in a moment and then we'll trim off all the edges. Alright, now we'll start to trim off some of the excess and clean up our job so it looks a bit neater. I've got a very sharp pair of scissors here, so I'll start off by trimming this on both sides, and then down the back behind the hinge, and down there. Now the underneath part, I'll have to cut the second half of this with a razor blade, so I won't be able to get the scissors down in there. That's done that. Now back to my razor blade. I'll cut down across the pipe here, and we should be able to, not quite, pretty tough stuff this Tyvek, so I'll make another cut there. It's still hanging in there, and that top of that's come loose. I'll put some more glue on that in a minute. That's got rid of that. Trim this little bit up. Bit of glue on that, I reckon. Little bit there, tiny bit there, and a tiny bit on that corner. Alright, we're almost done. We'll just finish up the one there, then I'll have to trim I'll actually trim the top off that while we're going. That's got him. That'll round that corner off. Now this corner over here that lifted a tiny bit, the Tyvek separated, I'll put a couple of dots of glue in there. Here we go, and fold it over, this time keeping my glove away from it because it caught my glove last time and stuck to it. There we go. That should now be pretty good. Here we go. Now, last thing to do is put that pin back in. I've found the hole where it goes, which is there. Put the top on the glue, and where's our pin? There it is. and a pair of pliers to hold it, and we'll push that in back to where it used to be. That is seriously tight, that thing, wow. Got to keep twisting it and turning it. There we go, that's got him. And there's our bellows. Alright. Now, clean this mess up and we'll start taking the movement to pieces. Well, we're ready to start taking the movement to pieces now. And look at the oil on that. How disgusting is that? Look at that. Yuck. Alright, turn it over. We'll take some of the back pieces off first. They're a bit more delicate than the front ones. So first thing we'll do, we'll take off the pendulum leader by opening up these couple of loops here. To do that we need 2 pairs of pliers. Don't try to do it with one or to jam a screwdriver in it. 2 pairs of pliers and slowly open it up. I think that's enough. Now up to the top one, there's 2 of these. Line it up. That's touching the top, that's a problem. Grip it with the pliers. Open it up. They're now both undone. We'll lift them out. A pair of tweezers. There we go. And now we'll bring the pendulum leader out of the crutch. It should just come out there. Yes, and it does. I won't close those loops up. They've probably been opened and closed a few times, so they'll have a bit of stress in them. So I won't do that. Alright, now let's remove some of these levers. And we see that the hammer lever has a wire running around it, goes in through that hole, in round, and then twists over it again to hold it in place. So we'll remove that piece of wire, trying not to break it at the same time because it's probably a bit brittle. Actually, it's very, very tight there. I'll try a pair of pliers and see if we can get the... Nope, that is tight. Alright, sharp pair of tweezers in underneath the back, and we'll gently prise that wire out. That's got it. There it is there. You can see that the wires come out. Now, pull it out through the hole. I'll straighten that after it comes out so we can put it back in again. Now turn the hammer lever until that little lug there comes up to the top level with that hole. Then the hammer lever will pull straight out. Now the high note lift lever, same thing, twist it round to that little pin, falls out through the slot. Now this piece of bent up wire here, I'll start to flatten that out. Being careful not to break it if possible. Using a flat jawed pair of pliers is the easiest way to do it. And keep working your way around against the bump every time. There we have it. That's looking a lot better than it did before. Okay, that can go over there. Next piece that comes off is the star wheel, this piece here. I'll get a small screwdriver to help loosen the star wheel so that we can remove it easily. And I'll show you how to fit that correctly once we put it back on again. Little bit of incentive, it's a bit tight. I'm pretty sure that yep, that should be loose. Alright. Yep, it is spinning. Okay. Bit of incentive. You'll put a drop of oil on that, might loosen it up a little bit, I hope. Give it a minute for the oil to seep down. It's turning a little bit more easily, give it a little bit more time. In the meantime, let's find out what size spanner we need, and that looks way too big. Not so. 5.5, probably a 5 would handle that pretty well. See if we can find one and see if a 5 works or not. Oh, there's a 5. That doesn't look quite big enough actually. Give it a try. Nope, not quite, so we need a 5.5. Alright, well, we've established that. That's the one that fits. We'll put that aside. Now back to our star wheel. Very carefully lift that up. It's being very hard to get on with actually. That's very loose. It's certainly not there because you can see it spinning on the shaft. So it needs to come up without bending it. I'll try a broader flat screwdriver and see if I can. That is incredibly tight. I'll put my thumb on the great wheel. Oh, certainly spinning backwards and forwards. I don't want to damage the lugs on that actually. I'll dry that off, and I don't think I've got a gear puller big enough for that somehow. No, I don't think so. Alright, I'll put a little bit more oil on that and give it a little bit longer, and we'll attempt to work out what the problem is. Actually, I'll get a set of vice pliers, fixed jaws pliers, and we'll see if we can get a grip on it and then lift it straight up, because we'll need something with teeth on it. Smooth jaws aren't going to work in this instance. Get a grip on that and slowly twist it backwards and forwards. I've removed it now, but what a drama. And there it is, over on the floor. I'll have to go and pick that up. There we go, no damage, but we'll have to clean that out. Yeah, it's got some gunk in it, alright. Run through that later on. Look at the muck on that already. I'll sharpen a long piece of pegwood that we can slide through that, and we'll see if we can clean up some of the muck on that. Dear oh dear. Alright, put that aside. First time I've had to use that sort of force to get a star wheel off. Before we take the back plate off, we've got a couple of circlips to remove here. I'll do that when I come back. Alright, let's remove some of these circlips now. There's one, that's got him. One's come off, and I'll take the other one off. That's pretty close. Oh no, got to be careful of these pressure fit ones. They like flying around the room uncontrollably. And there it is, that's those two. This is a pair of pliers I used to remove that. It's a special, I think there's about a dozen or 7 or 8 different types of Nipex pliers for specific applications for removing C-clips and E-clips. And this is the one you use for those pressure fit ones. Nothing else will do. It won't work. Alright, we've taken those off. Alright, now let's take some of the pieces off the front here. First up, we'll remove that little tension spring off the rack stop lever. That piece there. I don't think that's got enough room to move out at the moment, I don't think. Yes, it has. What do you know? Alright, put some pressure on the back of that with our finger and lift the rack stop lever out. And there's our old friend. Excessive amounts of oil, complete with muck in it, dirt in it, that becomes a grinding compound. And the other side is the same. Alright, we'll have to clean that up later on. Put that aside. Back to our movement. Now, we'll have to take this circlip off down here, off the minute wheel, so that we can get the rack and snail off. I'll just turn that round and very carefully with a pair of pliers, hoping not to lose it. Put your finger behind it, stop it shooting away, and that looks like it's come off. Alright, I'll remove that. There it is. That's a circlip that came off from the minute wheel, that piece there. Now, we'll take this circlip off here, off the rack. Once again, a pair of pliers and your finger behind it so you don't lose it. There we have it. Put them in, look at them. Yep, they're both the same, not a problem. Now, we can take the rack out. It's not too bad. The teeth look all right. I'll just check to make sure that there's no high ones. Nope. Now, lift the snail as we do. That washer of sorts comes up with it. Put that there. Take the snail off. That's the minute wheel, plastic one. Excess oil on it, you can see that there. We'll have to clean that up. And now, that little spring over the top there to get it out of the road. And now, we can lift this piece here out and it comes straight out. What do we got? Bit of oil on it, you can see it on my glove, but not too bad. We'll clean all those in a moment. Actually, we'll clean them now because I want to put the parts where they belong. Using a clean cloth, I'll run over that cup washer there and put that over there. Our plastic minute wheel, looking like a quality product, says he. Alright, let's see what we got in the way of oil and stuff in here. Yeah, has got. Alright, I'll have to clean that with kerosene later on to get that out. And these other parts, the rack's not too bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of these pieces have got oil in them. Yeah, they have. Alright, well, we'll clean all those and the rack stop lever, that gunk there, in some kerosene in a moment. Alright, I'll put those dishes aside, back to our movement, and you can see there's excess oil on there. In theory there shouldn't be any on the maintenance can, but there's heaps of it there. Alright, let's take the back plate off. We'll start off by undoing the nut, get a dish to put them in. Made in 1972, GM engine. Well, GM engines, the clock, the movement is a Regula 25, but it was made in 1972. I'm not expecting any drums with the bushings, the holes that are drilled into the plate on these little movements, one-day movements. They usually don't do enough work and the weights aren't heavy enough to put any excess stress on the bushings. Alright, I'll remove the other two nuts from their respective pillars and then we'll take the plate off and be careful of the crutch. Out through there. Quick look at the back plate. Doesn't seem to be a lot of excess oil on there. The pendulum hanger here, I'll remove that because it's steel, that can't go into the ultrasonic cleaner. But we'll clean that with some kerosene along with all the other parts that we're doing. The front doesn't look too bad. Alright, we'll check the bushings in a minute. Alright, time to remove the parts. Crutch looks a little bit bent out of whack, but we'll check that before we go. Now the pallets, I thought they might have had a slight mark on them. Alright, before we put that back, we'll run over that with one of my 2000 grit sticks. Alright, put that aside. Now, we'll take the parts out. Going side first. Great wheel, third of which is plastic. Put that there. Then the second wheel. Teeth look alright on that. Then the escape wheel. If you're going to have trouble with a wheel, with teeth on a wheel in a movement, that all the other ones look alright, you're going to have a problem with the escape wheel, and it's always a good idea to put it on a flat surface. A 6-inch rule is a good start, nice level surface, and spin the wheel slowly on it. You'll see whether there's any bent teeth in it or not. Alright, now for the strike side. First wheel comes out, see if the ratchet works. Yep, that works alright. Put it there, and we'll take the fly out, put it at the top there. Take the warning wheel out, quite a substantial pin on that for a small wheel. Alright, we'll take that out, put that over there. This piece underneath it, that wheel there, has a maintenance cam on it. So we normally leave the maintenance cam on unless you've got a specific reason to take it off, because they're a bit hard to get resettled once you remove them. Alright, we'll remove this piece here, the circlip on this once again, being careful to keep it within close proximity. I'll turn it round, it's not too easy to get at. There we go, that's got him. There it is. I'll put that there. And now we can take that lever out there. Yeah, that should come out. There we go. And guess what? Excess oil. Look at that. Down there and down there, both sides of it. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if we've got excess oil in there also. Yep, we've got a bit. Alright, I'll put that aside and we'll clean that up in some kerosene in a moment or so. Alright, well that's the parts there. I'll get them ready to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. That plate doesn't look too bad. Strangely enough, normally plates are covered in oil if everything else has got excess oil on it, but in this instance, not so. Alright, I'll get them ready for the ultrasonic cleaner and then we'll come back and see what they look like. Alright, well we're ready to start cleaning the parts we couldn't put through the ultrasonic cleaner. The metal parts. I've got a tub of kerosene here that I'll put the parts into. You'll remember a lot of them had serious amount of oil and muck on them there. So we'll put them in for a moment. Swill it round, let them soak. We'll have to do that great wheel too because it's got plastic on it. There's another plastic one, pop that in there. Pendulum leader support can go there. Move that over a bit. There we go. And the star wheel, which is pretty tough to get off, and I think there's a reasonable amount of dirt in there. So I'll just swill those round for a moment, let them sit there and start to get wet with the Kero, and now we'll clean them. I've got a toothbrush here, we'll run over them fully. Press the bristles down inside the hole there, might clean it out a shade more. I've got a piece of clean cloth here. Once I've cleaned the pieces, I'll put them on there, and then we're going to put them into some lighter fluid to finish the job. But initially we've got to clean them. So run up and down both sides. This is the rack, as you can see, and I'll show you a good way for cleaning out sections of that later on. It's not very easy to put a piece of pegwood down because they don't go in very far, as you can see, and if you make it really long, there is a possibility it can break off, and that'd be even worse than being dirty, that's for sure. Alright, just continue around here. These aren't too bad. I'm just primarily looking at taking any oil off that was on them. That's the snail. Now first wheel, run over that. This is from the going side train. Plastic wheel on it there. I'll just check to make sure that the ratchet works. Yep, that's working alright. Put it on our clean cloth. And continue cleaning. Alright, that's okay. This piece was clean, I didn't see any oil on that, but we might as well do it while we're doing the rest. Star wheel. Being careful not to bend any of those little lugs up. It's not particularly likely with a toothbrush, but we're aware of it. And the pendulum leader holder wasn't too bad, but the rack stop lever, this piece here, had a huge amount of oil and gunk on it down there. So that should, yep, that's looking a lot better. Alright, that's the first part of the operation. I'll get rid of the kerosene, I'll put that back into the bottle, then we'll get our naphtha and we'll move into the next phase of the operation. I'll fill our tub up with lighter fluid, or naphtha it's called in some countries, but it's the same deal one way or the other. Now we'll put the parts in and let them soak, spin them around a little bit so that they get covered completely with naphtha, including down in the tubes. That'll get rid of the kerosene so that we can then move on to the next step, which is drying them off, including that plastic one. I'll put that in there. Right, now we don't need to run over those with a toothbrush, so I'll put that aside, and we'll now take these pieces out, give them a quick check, lie them on the clean piece of cloth there. Yep, that looks alright. They've come up rather nicely actually, so we'll end up with all the movement parts clean by the time we've done this. Well, other than the chains, which we've got to clean, but they are done differently, they're not done this way. Alright, so there's our parts waiting to be dried off. I'll put the naphtha away and then we'll come back and dry them off. Alright, all the parts are there now, they've all come out of the naphtha. Now we'll run over them quickly with a hot air gun. This character here, on low, just a quick flick, that's all it takes, because the naphtha evaporates very, very quickly. You don't want to get the parts hot. Alright, that's all it takes. So those parts are all nice and clean now. I'll put them in their respective tubs and then we'll clean the chains, being those incredibly unattractive things there. These are the parts that have come back from the ultrasonic cleaner. You can see they're looking pretty good.
It does a very good job.
Nice and clean. And a couple of sets of wheels. Right, we're going to put those back into the movement in a moment. But first up, I forgot to show you how you can clean inside these pieces, and there's obviously one on the snail, and if you like also inside the minute wheel and the star wheel where these pieces fit onto the movement. Now, it's not easy to be able to elongate a piece of pegwood to fit into these pieces, not easy. So a simple way to do it is just to cut a little piece of material. It's trial and error, finding out what size fits, and then put a piece of wire on the end of it. So what you do then is insert the wire into the piece, and then using a pair of pliers, grab the wire, hold it tight, then start to pull it through. And you end up with that. And then you can see that's relatively tight. You can then pull it that way and pull it back again, and 2 or 3 times like that. Have a look at the cloth. There's no marks on it. So that's quite clean inside there. It's a very easy way of doing that, and also for cleaning holes, large bushings and other holes in plates, back plates and front plates. If the hole's big enough, which they sometimes are on plates, then you can use a shoelace or a bootlace and just pull it backwards and forwards through it, and you'll remove any oil and dirt that's inside. In this video I will show you another way to clean Cuckoo clock chains, and then we check the movement parts that have come back from the ultrasonic cleaner prior to reassembling the movement in the next episode. Well, it's time to clean the chains that have come out of this Cuckoo clock. As you can see, they're pretty rusty, and I would say it's been many years since there's been any hint of brass on that, and I would suggest that's why it's so rusty. Anyway, today I'm going to try a different method of cleaning them. What I have here is a piece of, looks like about 3-inch PVC pipe. I wound the chain around the pipe. I put a bit of masking tape here to hold that end on and pulled it tight all the way round. Another piece of masking tape here to hold it together and squeeze them together. So it now looks like that. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some toothpaste and a brass wire brush, and I'm going to put some toothpaste on the brush. I'm going to scrub it backwards and forwards on the chain. Once it's done, I'll then drop the chain into some water. I'll go over it with a toothbrush to get any toothpaste out from in between the links, and then I'll drop it into some naphtha, run over it with my hot air gun, and we'll see how much of a difference it makes. But it'll be mainly getting rid of a bit of rust. There's virtually no brass plating left on that. We just want to clean it up a bit. Alright, I'll get a little bit of toothpaste happening. Actually, I'll start off by putting a little bit down here on the chain, and then we'll be able to see how far it will go once we start scrubbing backwards and forwards with our brass wire brush. A little bit more. I'll slowly work my way around. A blob there. We'll put a blob up there with together, and I'll just keep working my way around, rubbing relatively heavily. With the brass brush. Toothpaste is of course a very mild abrasive. That's what cleans your teeth. So what I'm doing is using that mild abrasive and also a brass wire brush to push it onto the individual links and in between them to see if this new method is going to work or not. One last bob of toothpaste, and we've now gone round completely over the chain. I'll just run round, I'll run over it one more time. You can see there's rust and dirt and stuff coming off there onto the PVC pipe. Alright, so now I'll remove the piece of masking tape, unroll the chain. Do we get down to the other end? Take off the other piece of masking tape. There's a fair bit of muck on that, isn't there? Look at the difference when I lift the tape up, how clean the pipe is underneath it. Alright. Now we don't want the toothpaste to set on the chain, so I've got a container of water here. I'll drop the chain in straight away. We'll start moving it round, agitating it a bit. And in a moment, once it's had a chance to get wet all over, I'll then run over the chain with a toothbrush to clean it. In the meantime, I'll get rid of all this gunk off here. Right, that's looking a bit cleaner now. So what we're going to do is we'll put the chain back onto our piece of PVC pipe. So find the end of it and we won't put any masking tape on it this time because everything's wet and it won't bond anyway. Push that across over to there. Put the last couple of loops on. And whoop, and there we have it, lost one end. Fair enough. Well, I'll just put my thumb across that, and then over the top of the water we'll run over the chain, getting a bit loose there, with the toothbrush, removing any toothpaste that may happen to be in between the links. We're slowly working our way around. Hold those together there so we can clean them up. And moving on a little bit more. We're getting a fair bit of it out. You can see the colour of the water changing. And there's the other end. We've now gone completely round once. So I'll take it off our PVC pipe, give it a quick wash there. Then with a clean piece of cloth, move that aside. With a clean piece of cloth, I'll dry it up a bit. And now I'll put it into some naphtha to get rid of the rest of the water. Right, I've got a dish here with some naphtha in it. Now we'll put our chain in it, undo any knots we've managed to get in it so far, and we'll just swirl it around a little bit, lift it up and down, make sure that it's completely covered with the naphtha to get rid of any water that's still on it. Then pick it up and put it onto a clean piece of cloth. Let that sit there for a moment. I'll pat it up a little bit, and then I'll get our heat gun out now. Right, there's our chain. I'll hold it in my hand. We'll get our hot air gun on low and run over it. Doesn't need very much because the naphtha evaporates very, very quickly. Alright, so there's our chain. Let's see whether we've cleaned it or not. Yeah, little bits of sparkle here and there, not very much, but a little bit. It obviously worked. We could do it some more, would clean it up a little bit more, but there's definitely no sign of any brass coating on that I could see. Alright, well that's cleaned that up somewhat, got rid of a lot of the rust on it. So I'll have to take the knots out now, and then we'll do the last piece of the operation with this chain once we get it undone. Okay, that's got him, cool. I think I'll just, yep, they're the ends. Alright, the last thing we do with the chain is we get our little piece of cloth that's got some oil in it, just a tiny little amount of oil in it, not very much at all, and we put the chain in the center, wrap the cloth over it, and then very slowly, very hard to see with my black gloves, but you very slowly draw the chain through that piece of cloth with the oil on it, and that will put a very small coating of oil on the chain, which we'll check in a moment once we've covered it and got down to the far end. And the purpose of this tiny little bit of oil is because we've had the chain in water and it's a steel chain. Alright, so put our cloth away, a little bit of oily cloth away, and then we'll pat our chain in a clean cloth to make sure that there's no excess oil on it, though we put very, very little on. Alright, that's looking a little bit shinier, completely devoid of brass coating, but it's looking a little bit shinier. Alright, so that worked out alright, probably no better or no worse than the other ways we've done it, but It's another way to be able to clean your Cuckoo clock's brass coated steel chain. The parts have come back from the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll take them out of the dish now and put them on our foam block, and then we'll start to put the movement back together again. Yep, they look alright, fair enough. Put that over there. And a couple of wheels from the going side train. They've come up alright, fair enough. Put them over there. The warning wheel and the fly from the strike train. Put them in their position. Alright. And the strike side main wheel that hasn't got any plastic on it. In this video I will show you how to check pivots and bushings for wear. Also I will be stoning the leading and trailing faces of the pallets. Alright, let's start to put the movement back together again. Put the main wheel from the going side train. That's a tiny bit too big, that piece of PVC pipe. I'll have to turn one that's a bit smaller than that. Now the second wheel goes there. And the escape wheel goes there. Right, we'll put the back plate on and check and see how these pivots are. They should all be pretty good because it's a 30-hour movement and there's very little stress on the pivots and the bushings, but we'll put them in and check them anyway. That one's in. Now we'll get the escape wheel goes into there. I think they're in all right now. Yep, they look okay. I'll put a couple of nuts on two of these pillars, tighten them down just a little bit once I get a start on them. And the great wheel's come out of its pivot and I'll put that in again. Just about there, but not quite. I'll have to lift that plate up a little bit more. That's that one. Right, second wheel's come out. I'll tighten that down a tiny bit. I'll have to check the star wheel, which has come out also. On the other side, pull that back, put it into there, that's got him. I'll hold that. Now we need the escape wheel. Actually the second wheel's out. Just about there, and the escape wheel's got to come back a little bit this time and down a fraction. Very close. Not a lot of light in there to see where the bushing hole is, but that's got him. We're going to click in then. Let's see what we got. Alright, they're all in place now. I'll put a nut on this pillar here. Not as particularly easy, these small nuts with gloves on, but we don't want to put any oil from our skin on the plates and tarnish them, so I'll tighten those couple of nuts up. Not very much, just enough to hold them. That one, that one. Alright, things will stay in place now, so we'll spin the great wheel round. And we'll just check the pivots. I don't think we're going to have any problem. No, that's alright. Second wheel, that one there. No. First wheel, the great wheel. Well, it is the first wheel, but it's called the great wheel. That one there. The escape wheel, no. That guy there. First wheel. No, they're all okay. Right. Well, they spin nice and freely. Now we'll put the strike side train in and we'll check them. Take the nuts off first. Loosen them up. Spin them off. Remove the back plate, take the components out, put them on our foam block, and now we'll put the strike side in. Great wheel goes in first, goes there, warning wheel goes there, and the fly goes there, that bushing there. Alright, back plate on again. Let's move, we need that to be up a little bit. I'll put a nut on this pillar here, end of my gloves bending over, catching in the road, but that'll do for the moment. Now, come up here to the warning wheel, which is there, and the fly goes there, and they're all in place now. Right, I'll just tighten this first one down, the first nut. I won't bother putting on a second one. Now check the pivots, that guy there, no, he's alright. Warning wheel, no, and that one there. The fly, no, and we'll work down this time, the fly and then the warning wheel and the great wheel, that one there. Nope, everything's looking okay, as we imagined. Alright, now I'll put the going side train in. Take the back plate off first. Now before we put the rest of the wheels in, we've got to put this lift lever in, and that goes there. Check to make sure it's down all the way. That's where it goes. Now we've got a circlip to put back on that, being that one there. So I'll grab that in a pair of pliers and push it onto there, and then clip it back in like so. Okay, that's in. Now we can go back to putting the parts back in again. Great wheel, lift it up and slide it under there. Warning wheel goes there. The fly goes there. And the going side train, great wheel, second wheel goes there, and the escape wheel goes there. Alright, that's all the wheels in place there now. Right, now before we put the back plate on, you remember I said there was a couple of little marks on the pallets, that side and that side there. So we're going to stone them rather lightly with a couple of stones. I've set up my little 2-inch bench vise here, which I've tightened down. Now the pallets are going to be stoned. So we set the arbor in our 2-inch bench vise so that the top of the pallets, which are there, are parallel to the desk. That gives us a point of reference for what we're doing. Now we'll start off with an India stone, holding it on both ends. We very carefully run it across the top of the pallet, keeping the stone parallel to the face of the pallet. Alright, it doesn't take very much, and you've got to be very slow and very careful with this so you don't damage things. Now we'll use the gusset stone, which is a synthetic ruby stone. Follow the same pattern as before. Medium pressure, just running across the face of the pallet. And that is about all it takes. The mark's gone from there now. We'll turn it round and look at the other pallet, so we want that to be parallel to the desk again. India stone. Slowly run across the face and then back to the synthetic ruby stone. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now we'll check inside, and I think they look alright actually, but I'll just very lightly run over the tip of the pallet to make sure that it's square. The leading pallet and also the trailing pallet. Keeping it parallel, and there's not much room to move there. You can see that those two faces are nice and shiny now, so we've done our job. Alright, we'll now put that into the movement. Now we'll put the pallets and crutch into the movement. They go in through the back plate that way. Find its bushing hole to put it in. Down it goes. Now, once we align some pillars, the bottom of the movement down here, but we've missed the great wheel. Get that pivot aligned first. In this video, I reassemble the movement and explain the relationship between the 8-point star wheel and the hammer lift lever just before the movement goes into warning. Now we'll align the plate so that we can put some nuts on a couple of the pillars down here and hold them in place. It's getting there. And that one, I'll put a nut on this pillar here for a start. Then we can start getting the other parts sorted out. The fly's fallen out, so I'll take that out for the moment. We'll put that in later. Alright, what have we got here in the way of wheels? Second wheel. Warning wheel. Alright, they're right. Now, the crutch and the pallets in down there. The escape wheels move, that's why it's not falling into place. Actually, I'll put the fly in while I'm on this side. We'll get the complete side done, and then we'll move over to the going side train. That's got that. Alright, so I'll put a nut on the top there. Then we'll dive into the other side. Alright, everything's on the move here apparently. Starting with the great wheel, which needs to come across to there. If it feels so inclined. No, it's still positioned correctly down. No, that's the problem. It's fallen out down there. Alright, lift the plate up, align that again, and they should all be, that goes there, okay. Raise the plate a bit. Right, I've got all the wheels in now. I'll put a nut on that pillar there. Roll it down a bit. Tighten it up a little bit with our spanner, not very much. We don't want them too tight. We haven't checked everything yet. And the bottom one down there, roll it round. Okay, let's have a look and see. We'll spin the strike side, it's spinning nice and freely. Now we'll spin the going side. Turn it over, that might be easier. I'll put some pressure on the wheel, pulling it down. And there you can see the pallets and the crutch kicking away furiously. Alright, so everything there is now aligned. Alright, now time to start putting the lift levers, the hammer and the lift levers on, which we'll do now. Now that we've stoned the pallets and got them back into good condition, we'll now continue putting the movement back together. And we'll start off with the low note on the Cuckoo's bellow lift lever. Slide it in through the hole until that little pin catches, and then that'll hold it there in position. Then the high note, slide it into the slot above the low note, turn it round to that little pin drops in. There we go. Now we want the hammer lever. Same thing once again, align it, let the pin drop in, get the pivot into the bushing hole on the opposite side on the front plate, and it drops into there. Alright, now we have to put that wire there through that little hole there and pull it out and twist it round to put a little bit of positive pressure on the hammer. I think I'll get a broader pair of tweezers, might help with that. Alright, let's find our piece of wire. There it is. We'll bend that over. And drop the end. Once I can get a hold of it, drop the end into that hole, which isn't particularly easy to see, but it's there, and so just about, but not quite. I'll get a lower grip on that and bend it a little bit. That might solve the problem. There we go. Wire's gone through, and it should be, unfortunately, over the top of that on the other side of it. So we've got it in the hole, but it has to go around the wire. It's going to have to go in that way. Where's that bushing got to? Bushing hole, there we go. Well, now, is that tight enough? Yep, that's tight enough. All right, so we're back to putting that piece of bent wire into that little hole there, and it's not easy to manipulate a spring wire. We got it before, but it was upside down, so that didn't count. Get that to go in there. Almost, there we go, that's got it. Whoop, don't let it come out again. I'll pull that back, pull it round, and see how we go. Yep, that's got pressure on it. So we'll grab that while we've got it before it slides back in again. And now, that's all right. We really want to, that is so fine, that wire, we need to slot it in under there to hold it. And that, strangely enough, is not going to be easy. That up and bend that back in a little bit in the other direction. Squeeze that down nice and tightly now so that it stays there. And there's our positive pressure on the hammer. Okay, now the next thing we're going to put on, make sure that these levers are all working. All right, now we're going to put on the 8-point star wheel. Screwdriver, I'll loosen the screw on that. It goes on that post there. We'll put it there and get it to slide down, which it doesn't want to do. Actually, I'll put a drop of oil on that and see if it'll slide in a little bit easier. Little drop on that, let it sit for a moment. Gravity will feed it down. See if it'll settle down a bit more easily. You'll remember it was pretty hard to get it off before, and it's equally as hard to get it on again. and that screw is not affecting it in any way, shape or form. So it's just a really tight fit. There we go, that's got it. Right, now there's a trick in setting these up. You don't just put the star wheel on and leave it there and tighten it down. There has to be, I'll get that lift, the Bellows lift lever out of the road so we can see what we're doing. Now you can see the pin on the hammer lever is touching one of the pins there. Well, the star wheel is set correctly. I'll just tighten this down, then I'll show you. Tighten that screw up. You have a closer look at that and see. Yep, that looks pretty good. Right, I'll tighten this down. Now I'll take a photo of this in a moment and show you, and I'll do it in close up and it'll be easier to see. But you'll notice that that pin on the hammer is not touching that pin there at all on the one of the 8 pins on the star wheel here. It's slightly above it. That is so when the movement goes into warning, there's slight movement on the star wheel and the pin drops down a tiny little bit towards that pin on the star wheel, but it mustn't touch it, simply because when the movement starts, it doesn't want to start pushing against the hammer lever immediately. It needs a tiny little bit of time to pick up a little bit of momentum to make it happen more efficiently. So what happens is the movement starts there. That's where the hammer is. It goes into warning, comes up a little bit, and then when it starts striking, the star wheel moves, comes up to that hammer lever, then rises it up and it falls off. And as it falls off, the hammer strikes the gong. And then it keeps turning round how many times it needs to be to strike the gong. Right, those levers are on now. So we'll now put the pendulum leader on. We'll tighten this piece down up here into the back plate, turn it round. That should be tight about there. Right, now we'll need 2 pairs of pliers for this operation. We'll put the pendulum leader, that's 1, we want 2 actually. Tighten that up a tiny bit, might make it easier. There we go, they're both in now. Now they have to be tightened up. To do that, we use 2 pairs of pliers. We don't ever just bend anything by itself. You don't know what bizarre angle you're going to bend it in. So you need to hold it tight with 1 pair of pliers, and then slowly with the other pair of pliers, that's moved a bit, I'll come back. There we go, and there it is. So we now have to put the pendulum leader into the crutch, which goes there. So I shall open up the bottom of the crutch a tiny little bit, 2 pairs of pliers as usual. Only need a tiny little bit open. That should be enough, I would think, to slot the pendulum leader in. No, not quite yet. Turn it down just a tiny bit. The wire is just about there. That's got the pendulum leader in now. So I'll bring that bottom piece of the crutch up a tiny bit, curl it up, so that it holds the pendulum leader in it and it won't fall out. And tighten it up a little bit in that direction. Alright, now we can check it. There we have the pendulum leader. Alright, now we'll start to put the front pieces on and the other levers that aren't in there yet. And 2 of them require those tiny little pressure clips. I'll put that fine spring up there for a moment, get it out of the road, and I think, see if we put the rack stop lever in first. Yep, that's got him. Now I'll bring that little spring over the top, put it on top of the lever, and that'll give us a little bit of positive pressure, as you can see. All right, now, before we go any further, we've got to put one of those pressure fit clips on. These pieces tend to get thrown around the room very, very easily. So I'll put one on my finger to align it in the pliers and make sure that that's in sufficiently. Yes, right. Don't squeeze it until you get it over the top of the post you want it to be on. There's less chance of losing it. Squeeze it and then let go of the pliers, and you can see that the clip is on there and it's working all right. That should actually be in a tiny bit more. You can see I've got too much of a gap there. So pliers back on again, put them into the two little grooves there, squeeze them tightly a bit and push them in. That's looking better. Yep, that's got rid of most of the excess movement out of that. All right, that's the first one. Now, this guy goes in there. Get it aligned so it drops out the back. That's got him. Lifts up and down, yes. So, another one of those pressure clips. Get the pliers into it. Not too deeply, but it's got to be deep enough to hold it because we don't want to lose it. That looks about right. So I won't put any more pressure on that till it gets over the post. That way if it comes off, it should stay on the post. All right. That needs to go down a little bit. See what we got. If it comes up and down, yes, that needs to be a little bit further in. So Nipex pliers again, squeeze it a little bit and move it down. All right, that's got that. Okay. I think I showed you last time, but I'll make sure again. These are the pliers, the Nipex pliers that you need. They're specifically designed to handle this type of pressure clip. They're the ones you need. 460-21A01. 3 to 10 millimeters. They're the ones you need. Nothing else will do, guaranteed. You won't be able to put it on with any other tool. Okay, those parts are on. Now we'll put on the minute wheel, which goes there. And then the snail, which we'll put there. Get those two wheels to mesh. We want to set that at 12 o'clock, which is there. And I'll just slot the rack over the top and see if we can drop it in underneath. There we go. And we'll turn the snail round to that position there. Rack should be under there. Setting up the rack and snail at the moment. That position there on the rack, sitting into that little slot there, is exactly 12 o'clock, and that's how we always start when we're setting up a movement. You never just put it together and then sort of try to find out what it is later. You set it up at 12 o'clock, and that's the position there. So what we've got to do now, we've got to put a circlip on there, being one of those. So I'll get that in a pair of tweezers, hold it tightly, we don't want to lose it, and then push it onto the post there, into the groove. Once we've got it there, hold it, use a pair of pliers to pop it into place, and there it is there. That'll hold the rack in position, it won't move now. So the last piece we've got to put on there is this little dish that goes over the minute wheel, and that also has a C-clip on it, that one there. So I'll push that onto there. This one you have to be careful with, it can fly around the room very quickly. So with your pliers, clip it so that it falls down inside that dent, and that's not in there yet. Nope, it's come out. Like I said, it's not in there yet. So put that back, line it up again, a pair of pliers, and squeeze it into position. We hope. It is being obnoxious, isn't it? Dropping down a bit, but it's not easy to... There we go, that's got him. Just check that. Yes, that's got him. He's caught in down there. Alright, so let's see what we got. Rack, snail, that's 12 o'clock. They're in. 12 o'clock. Right, we'll all the movement now, so we can then put it up on a test stand to check its timing before we put the movement back into its case. That'll be rather nice, so we can move it round and see where the bushing holes are that we need to oil. That's the big one. Right, I'll get a smaller one. I don't need as big a tip on the oiler for this. That's better. Alright, we'll use this white one. Little bit of oil. There should be a bushing up in there, and there is that one. Put a drop on this post here. That oil will run down in there. 2 drops on the cannon arbor. The oil will run down into there. We've done that one. See what we've got up here. Yep, that's right. Alright, one on the rack post, one on the rack stop lever. I'll put that in behind it, one there. There's a pivot there on the pallets, that one there for the fly, and the third wheel is a bit hard to see, but it's right there. See what we've got here now. We haven't put anything on the second wheel there, which is that pivot there, and then the escape wheel, which is hidden under there. That's got him. Alright, turn the movement over, and we've got a bit easier access now. First wheel, a little bit too much oil there. I'll dab the top of that off. We don't need that amount. We don't want it either. We don't need it. We certainly don't want it. A drop there. One there on the escape wheel. The fly on that lever. And we've got warning wheel there. We've done the fly. That should be... Yeah, we've done the warning wheel. Right, that should be that. That was easy enough done. Right, we'll drop the chains in now. Now, to find out which way the chain runs on the going side train, you can push the great wheel one way or the other if you can get some pressure underneath it, and you'll feel which way the ratchet turns. The ratchet at the moment is turning in that direction. So that means that the chain has the weight hanging on it on the outside here. Alright, so find the end of the chain, drop it down over the ratchet in a little bit, and then turn it over, holding your finger on the bottom of the chain so hopefully it doesn't fall out. And then we can... Oh, it slipped round. Alright, not a problem. That back onto the ratchet there, and then with a pair of tweezers we can catch the end of one of the links and pull it through. Not a lot of room there, but it can be done. Actually, I'll put a tiny little bit more chain in, not too much. We don't want too much there. It's going to make it harder to do because we'll have excess falling round all over the place. Alright, there's our chain, and that has got it to there. So being very careful, we'll drop some more chain in, hold it on the ratchet so it doesn't fall out, and then catch our chain as it comes out this side. Right, because these things love to fall out and cause you grief. I'm going to put a little bit of wire on that to hold the two together for the moment. I'll just put that through there, through that link and through one of those links and bend it over like so it can't fall out, allegedly. No, that looks alright. Right, now we've got to put the strike side train in, get that out of the road and spin it round. We can certainly see that's the direction it turns in. So it means that the weight falls on the inside here, so we've got to feed the chain in that way. And this chain didn't come up nearly as well as the other one. Still looks a bit ratty. So that chain's alright, so we need, better check that again. Alright, end of our chain, drop it over the top of the sprockets. Make sure it hasn't got a knot in it or we're not going to get anywhere. See how that goes. Yeah, it sort of needs to come out a bit and drop down that side of that wheel. Give it a, how's that going, I wonder? I'll spin the ratchet round a bit. That is tight. Alright, I think yeah, it's caught there on a wheel. Alright, now run the ratchet round. There we go. Make sure that's in the line and then just spin the wheel around and the chain will come out the other side. And there it is. I'll bring that out a little bit more. There's not a lot there actually. I'll spin that a little bit more and drag that down. That will have to come out a bit more for it to drop out the bottom of the case. Wind that round just a little bit more. That's better. We've got a reasonable amount of chain coming out there now. So I'll put a piece of wire on that so we don't lose that one either. Don't need much. Half an inch, 3/4 inch or so is probably about right. Bend it over and there's a half open link there actually. Alright, I'd better fix that before it goes any further. The movement's back from the test stand. It's running okay. We're now going to put it back into the case. I put the little bird on its perch. That's not exactly where it has to be, but we won't know that until the movement gets inside the case. So that's what we're going to do now. We'll very carefully put the movement inside the case, being careful of the little bird so we don't snap it off, and align it over the holes initially where we're going to tie it down. There we go. I've got one of the screws attached to my grabbing screwdriver. I'll just put these 4 screws in partially initially because we've got to get the chains out through the holes in the bottom of the case. And we've also got to align the little bird, which looks relatively close, but I don't think it's going to be quite close enough. So we'll check that once I've got these 4 screws partially in. Can't find my long shafted screwdriver anywhere. Alright, we'll have to use the little green one then. So I'll tighten these screws down to hold the movement in place. They're only small screws so it doesn't take long to get them in. There we go. Alright, before we put the chains in, we're going to have a look and see how the little bird fits in. First thing I'll do is I'll take the piece of wire off the little bird's door so that we can fit the little bird in. I'll check that. I think that's slightly off to one side. Yep, you can see there, too close. Alright, put the case down again and pull the bird out, and I'll loosen that screw so that I can move the bird up a little bit away from the side of the frame. And I would think we'll try that. Tighten the little bird down again. That's not easy to get at, very confined space in here. Plus there's virtually no light, which doesn't make it easy. Alright, we'll check it and see first, and then we can tighten it down. Now, where's our little bird? There we go. You can see there, he's going to come out in the middle of the door. And so that's right. Okay, I'll tighten that down, and I'll use a different screwdriver. Actually, it might be a bit easier to get into it. Alright, we've got the little bird position now. So we've now got to put this hook up through that little hook there, and then turn it down just a little bit so that it stays in place. Alright, let's see what that looks like. Turn it over, get rid of that. There's our little bird. Alright, I'll put the wire on that and hold it in place so it doesn't open again. Now it's time to put the chains in through the holes in the bottom of the case. We'll go with this guy first, and I'll get a pair of tweezers so we can grab it. There we go. That's pulled through the first one. Now the other side of that chain goes in here. Line the tweezers again, catch the chain, and then slowly pull it through, making sure it doesn't catch on anything. Alright, that's two. But that guy's caught up on the top of that. That's got him. Pull him through. Now, strike side chain. Line him up through the third hole. Grab him with tweezers. Pull him through. And the last chain, or the last part of the same chain, goes into here. Pull it through until it's all the way through. Then let it drop down, and there we have the 4 chains. What I'll do now is I'll put a hook on each of the ends of these chains that hold the weights on them, and tighten it up so that the chain doesn't slide back into the case. That's one. And strike side now. Put the hook on it and close it up nice and tightly. A bit off whack, I'll straighten that up. Yep, that's right. Okay, that'll hold those now. They won't fall through. Okay, next part of the operation is putting the bellows in and their lift levers. And that is what we're going to do right now. Where's our high note? And the high note bellows lift lever. That beast there. Alright. So what we've got to do, that initially goes up into there. And I'll find the little hole here, which is there, that brad goes into. And I'll straighten that up. It's slightly bent. Alright, I'll slide that brad into the hole. Virtually impossible to see, but that's beside the point. Tiny bit more. I think that's it there. Yep. Okay. Now, before we put the screw into that, we have to align the lift lever down here, which goes into there. Pull that up, hold it with a pair of tweezers till we can get the pliers on it, and then we'll bend it over. I'll put a pair of pliers on the bottom to hold that because it's bending a bit, and then with another pair of pliers I'll twist this over. That should have it all right. See what we got. Okay, now one of our screws that we use for holding the bellows in, 2 of them here, a little packet. I'll drop it into a dish. They're the screws I'm talking about. grab one of those, to my screw holding screwdriver again, lift the side of the case up, and I'm using a dentist probe to align the holes, and then once having found it, I then start inserting the screw. Take the screw holding screwdriver off, and then screw the screw down with the normal screwdriver. Right, there's the high note. Now, same thing for the low note. Screw holding screwdriver, get that organised initially, and there's our bellows, low note. Now what we've got to do once again is straighten up this little brad in here so that we can push the pipe onto it. Right, let's try that. That's a hole on the bellows that I'm going to line that little brad there, push it on, obviously missed the hole, and it's snapped off. Right, not a problem. Right, that aligns the hole on the pipe with the hole in the side of the case. I'll tighten that down, and we've got that piece of wire there under the tail of the bird, and as this bellows lifts up, it lifts the tail of the bird, and the bird bobs its head outside the cage. Alright, now put the other bellows lift lever on. Right, I'll turn that over and check to make sure that that works correctly. Yep, there's our little bird. Now, dentist probe and go back over there. Don't need that anymore. Right, now I'll get in here and I'll put in the low note bellows lift lever, and then we'll be just about finished in actual fact. I'll hang the clock up on the wall and we'll have a look at it working up there. I'll put a ring on each of the long ends of the chain. That'll secure that in there so the chain won't pull in through the case. That's the first one. Now the second one. Drop that through there and spin it round. Okay, that's got him. Right, now we'll go and put the clock on the wall, and we'll put the topper on it and see what it looks like. Alright, might help if I put the hands on, I think. I think this was 3 o'clock when I took it off. We'll check it once we put it on the wall. But I'll put where's the square one? That's what we want. Wind that down to there, and then put the minute hand on with its knurl nut. Little guy there, put that on top and start to screw it down. Hand in the middle, being a bit careful because these are old plastic hands, love to break very, very easily, I would think. Right, I'll tighten up the knurl nut very carefully, a little bit at a time. Nope, not tight enough yet, still spinning round. Alright, I'll take that off, because the piece underneath it can't be seated properly if that hand is spinning. Should be. It's certainly sitting on there correctly. It would appear that the hand hasn't settled down far enough onto it. Right, we'll have another go. See if we can get that. Yeah, that's the top. Alright, get that aligned and then wind it down. That's feeling a bit better. Carefully tighten it a bit with the pliers. Yep, that's looking alright. Okay, now I'll go and put it on the wall and we can have a look at it working. And there's our clock on the wall working, pendulum swinging there. So that's the end of another clock repair video on a Cuckoo clock.